Hello and welcome, I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching The World Report. Let's first take a look at our top stories. US President Donald Trump says he could meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin very soon as Saudi-hosted peace talks approach. European leaders scramble to respond, preparing for an emergency summit in Paris after the US says they will not have a seat at the negotiating table. An Israeli strike in Gaza kills 3 police officers, with Hamas accusing Israel of violating the ceasefire. This comes as Israel receives a shipment of US heavy bombs approved by President Donald Trump. Lebanese official media reports 3 Israeli airstrikes in the east of the country, escalating cross-border hostilities. Meanwhile, Hezbollah's chief calls for broader participation in the funeral of slain leader Nasrallah, increasing concerns over further unrest. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, M23 Rebels seized the strategic city of Bukavo as provincial authorities confirm the withdrawal of Congolese troops. The rapid offensive fuels fears of a broader regional conflict. The negotiations in the Russia-Ukraine war have gained pace, with US President Trump planning a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This comes as US and Russian officials are set to meet in Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, European leaders are also meeting to discuss support for Ukraine. Here's the report.
US President Donald Trump has given an update on the Russia-Ukraine truce talks.
On your timing of your meeting with Putin in Saudi Arabia?
No, there's no time set, but it could be very soon.
Like this month?
Well, it'll be soon. We'll see what happens, but they're meeting right now.
Meanwhile, US State Secretary Marco Rubio said the specifics of the talks, including the makeup of the Russian delegation, had not been finalized.
It will reach a point when if it's real negotiations, and we're not there yet, but if that were to happen, Ukraine will have to be involved because they're the one that were invaded. And the Europeans will have to be involved because they have sanctions on Putin and Russia as well.
This comes as Rubio arrives in Saudi Arabia, where he will meet Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, and other officials for talks on ending the Ukraine war. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky landed in United Arab Emirates. He and his wife, Olena Zelenska, were greeted by an Emirati official and honor guard at the airport. His agenda of arrival remains unclear. However, Zelensky has warned that Russia is only pushing for a ceasefire to replenish its battle-stricken forces for future attacks. He also said that Russia will wage a war against a weakened NATO should Donald Trump weaken the military alliance. His comments came on the eve of emergency talks between Britain, France, Germany, and other European powers over deploying troops to Ukraine as part of any peace settlement. From the battleground, Russian troops have sharply stepped up their attacks in eastern Ukraine. The recent attacks were concentrated near the imperiled logistics hub of Pokrovsk, Kiev said. Kiev's military reported 261 combat engagements with Russia over a 24-hour period on Saturday, easily the largest number recorded this year. What will be the future of the war amid truce talks and the continued offensives? Bureau Report, NewsX.
Let's now take a look at the latest updates from across North America. A third victim was found in the wreckage of a fiery crash inside a Wyoming highway tunnel that involved 26 vehicles, officials have said. The crash, which occurred on Friday on Interstate 80 near Green River, sparked a fire that destroyed several vehicles. Investigators are working through snowy conditions to determine the cause. The eastbound tunnel is set to reopen on Wednesday, but the westbound tunnel remains closed indefinitely. Governor Tony Evers has proposed closing Wisconsin's second oldest prison as part of a $500 million plan to reform the state's correctional system. Built in the 1800s, the Green Bay facility has faced rising maintenance costs, staff assaults, and federal investigations. The plan, which does not include building a new prison, must be approved by the Republican-led legislature, which has previously blocked Evers' initiative. Paul Simon and Sabrina Carpenter opened SNL's 50th anniversary special with a duet of Homeward Bound, while Steve Martin's monologue set a comedic tone. Paul McCartney closed the night with Golden Slumbers carry the weight and the end. The star-studded event featured cameos from Meryl Streep, Jack Nicholson and Keith Richards, with tributes to SNL's legacy of shaping comedy and music over 5 decades. Dwayne Keefe D. Davis's attorneys have filed a motion to postpone his trial, arguing more time is needed to investigate new evidence. A private investigator claims witnesses can confirm Davis wasn't in Las Vegas during Tupac Shakur's 1996 murder. The defense also suggests another person may have orchestrated the killing. A hearing on the delay is set for Tuesday. Marco Eben, a 32-year-old Dutch drug trafficker and one of Europe's most wanted fugitives, was shot dead near Mexico City this week. In 2020, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison for smuggling 400 kilograms of cocaine from Brazil to the Netherlands. After his conviction, Eben fled Europe and had been living in Mexico under a false identity since 2023. He reportedly faked his own death in October 2024 to evade capture. Authorities suspect his murder is linked to rival gang conflicts. William Ray Lucas, former director of NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, has passed away at the age of 102. Lucas led the facility during the 1986 Challenger disaster, which was later blamed on faulty booster rocket design. He resigned months after the explosion, but defended NASA's decision to launch. Despite the controversy, Lucas had a distinguished career in missile development and space exploration. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has sent negotiators to Cairo as part of crucial diplomatic push to implement phases of the ceasefire. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has condemned Hamas for holding both hostages and the bodies of deceased captives, calling it sick depravity. With Israel's security cabinet set to discuss the next steps, the region holds its breath.
The latest attempt to stabilize the region is underway as Israeli negotiators arrive in Cairo for a new round of talks. This move marks a critical step toward implementing the first phase of the ceasefire agreement, which seeks to de-escalate tensions and secure the release of hostages.
المدني بيطلق أكبر قافلة مساعدات إنسانية لأشقائنا في قطاع غزة 457 شاحنة محملين بأكثر من 7200 طن من المساعدات المتنوعة من المواد الغذائية الجافة والمعلبة، الأغطية، المفروشات، ألبان الأطفال، الأدوية والمستلزمات الطبية. كل حاجة الحمد لله تم إعدادها بكل عناية. إن شاء الله توصل لأشقائنا في أسرع وقت ممكن. إن شاء الله.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu approved the negotiations after high-level consultations with US and regional officials. The talks are expected to focus on finalizing hostage release agreements and discussing the future of Gaza following the war.
President Trump and I are working in full cooperation and coordination between us. We have a common strategy, and we can't always share the details of this strategy with the public, including when the gates of hell will be opened, as they surely will if all our hostages are not released until the last one of them.
During his visit to Israel, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio did not hold back in his criticism of Hamas. He described the group's decision to retain both living hostages and the bodies of deceased captives as sick depravity, calling for immediate action to bring all hostages home. With negotiations in motion, Israel's security cabinet is set to convene to discuss the second phase of the ceasefire. Key agenda items include strategic military decisions, hostage exchanges, and long-term governance plans for Gaza post-Hamas. The international community is closely monitoring the situation. While the United States supports Israel's goal of eradicating Hamas, Washington continues to push for diplomatic solutions to prevent further civilian casualties. European leaders have also called for a sustainable peace agreement. As negotiations continue and pressure builds, the next few days will be crucial in determining whether the ceasefire holds. All eyes remain on the outcome of the Cairo talks and the decisions made by Israel's security cabinet. We'll keep you updated as this story develops. Bureau Report, NewsX.
We'll now take a look at the latest updates from across South America. A man died from his injuries after a fire broke out in a factory in Rio de Janeiro on February the 15th. The blaze, which engulfed the factory in the city's industrial area, left several workers injured, with emergency services rushing to the scene. Despite efforts to save him, the victim later passed away from severe burns. Authorities have launched an investigation into the cause of the fire, while firefighters and rescue teams continue to assess the extent of the damage. The incident has raised questions about workplace safety in the region. An Indian cyclist, Mohit Kohli, has tragically died in Chile after being struck by a vehicle while attempting to set a world record for the fastest 10,000-kilometre journey across South America on a standard bicycle. The incident occurred on February the 12th, 2025, and the cyclist was rushed to a hospital but did not survive. Kohli had been riding through remote areas of Chile as part of his record-setting attempt. His death has shocked the cycling community and highlighted the dangers faced by athletes during extreme challenges. In an unusual but effective operation, a Peruvian police officer disguised as a large teddy bear led a drug raid in Lima, the capital. The undercover operation targeted a known drug distribution hub, catching criminals off guard. Authorities seized approximately 1,700 packets of cocaine paste and marijuana during the bust. The creative tactic allowed officers to infiltrate the area without raising suspicion, leading to multiple arrests. Peru, one of the world's largest cocaine producers, continues to battle drug trafficking with innovative law enforcement strategies. The raid highlights the police force's commitment to dismantling illicit drug networks in the country. Chevrolet has introduced the Spark EV, an electric vehicle aimed at the South American markets. The car, based on GM's Belgian model, will be available in Brazil later this year. The move is a significant step towards the region's automotive electrification. The Spark EV is designed to cater to the growing demand for eco-friendly transportation solutions, aligning the global trends towards sustainable mobility. This release marks Chevrolet's commitment to electric vehicles, enhancing its presence in the South American market as part of a broader strategy to embrace cleaner technologies in the automotive sector. The launch is expected in winter this year. Shakira cancelled her concert in Lima after being hospitalised. The Colombian superstar was rushed to the hospital due to a sudden health issue, leaving fans in limbo as to whether the show was expected to be a major part of her tour. Doctors advised her to rest and avoid performing until she recovers. Shakira apologised to her fans and expressed her desire to return to the stage as soon as she is able to. The concert was part of her Las Mujeres No Ya Lloran tour, which had been expected to draw large crowds. Tensions are soaring as Hezbollah and Israel edge closer to the February 18th withdrawal deadline. With airstrikes, ceasefire violations and warning from both sides, will the fragile truce hold? Here's the latest.
Tensions between Hezbollah and Israel are escalating ahead of the February 18th withdrawal deadline. Israeli airstrikes pounded southern Lebanon and the Bekaa Valley on Sunday, targeting key areas as Hezbollah vows to resist any extension of Israeli control.
بدنا نحول هذا التشييع إلى مظهر تأييد وتأكيد على الخط والمنهج ونحن مرفوعو الرأس. هذا هو التشييع الذي نريده.
Hezbollah has mobilized its supporters, calling for mass participation in a funeral procession, turning it into a show of strength. The group's leadership insists Israel must fully withdraw from Lebanon by the agreed deadline.
طبعا أنا أدعو جماهيرنا بشكل مباشر إلى أوسع مشاركة. خلي تكون الصورة وخلي يكون المشهد وخلي يكون العنوان هو أن حزب الله والمقاومة الإسلامية حاضرون في الساحة أقوياء لهم امتداد.
Israeli airstrikes hit multiple locations in Lebanon overnight, including Halbata, and Wadi al-Zaini near Sidon. A drone strike in Sidon reportedly targeted a Hamas official, with footage showing a vehicle engulfed in flames.
مسؤولية الدولة اللبنانية أساساً وحصراً في هذه المرحلة أن تعمل بكل جهد بالضغوطات السياسية بعلاقاتها بأي عمل من الأعمال من أجل أن تجعل إسرائيل تنسحب في 18.
Despite the ceasefire in place since November 27th, Israel has postponed its full withdrawal multiple times. Hezbollah rejects any retention of Israeli control over 5 key positions in southern Lebanon, stating there are no 5 points, no other details. This is the agreement. Both Israel and Hezbollah have accused each other of violating the ceasefire terms. While Israeli forces claim they are targeting military sites, Hezbollah warns of consequences if the February 18th deadline is not honored. With just hours remaining, the uncertainty looms over whether Israeli troops will fully withdraw or if renewed conflict is imminent. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now let's head to the Indo-Pacific region for latest updates from there. Singapore's opposition leader Pritam Singh has been found guilty of lying under oath to a parliamentary committee over his handling of former lawmaker Raish Khan, who had falsely testified in Parliament. Singh was accused of guiding Khan to maintain her lie, with prosecutors seeking a fine of up to $14,000 for his 2 charges. This comes after Khan's resignation and her $35,000 fine for lying. The case has gained national attention ahead of Singapore's upcoming general election. The Russian Navy's Admiral Novelsky landing ship has conducted artillery drills in the Sea of Japan, testing its air defence and weaponry. The crew fired at simulated air targets and small manoeuvrable targets, including mock unmanned boats. These exercises were part of the planned combat training for the Russian Pacific Fleet, according to the Interfax. Taiwan's Defence Ministry rejected China's claim over the Taiwan Straits following Beijing's criticism of Canada sailing a warship through the waterway. While China views the strait as its own, Taiwan and its allies see it as international waters. Taiwan highlights the global security risks posed by China's actions, including military drills and patrols. Taiwan's foreign ministry praised Canada's support for the strait's freedom and peace. A Taliban government delegation arrives in Japan on the 17th of February for its first diplomatic visit outside the region. The group, consisting of officials from Afghanistan's higher education, foreign affairs and economy ministries, left Kabul for a 1-week trip. Deputy Minister Latif Nazari expressed on Twitter that the Taliban's goal is for a strong, united and prosperous Afghanistan and a global participation. Japan's embassy in Kabul, temporarily relocated to Qatar after the 2021 Taliban takeover, has since resumed diplomatic and humanitarian activities in Afghanistan. China has ramped up efforts to dismantle international scam gangs along with the Thai-Myanmar border, with Assistant Minister Liu Zhongyi visiting the area to support the crackdown. Over 700 people from 8 countries, including China, have been rescued so far. Thailand and Myanmar are working together on the operation, with the Myanmar Border Guard force involved. The gangs, which have caused major economic damage, are now using solar power and satellite internet after Thailand cut off utilities in the region. M23 fighters backed by Rwandan troops have seized control of Bukavo, sparking fears of regional balkanization and mass displacement. With looting and refugee flows escalating, tensions mount as the DRC condemns Rwanda's actions. Here is the full report.
M23 fighters have entered the heart of Bukavo, a key city in eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The city, home to a population of 1 million, had been poorly defended by the Congolese armed forces. This gives M23 total control over Lake Kivu after their recent takeover of Goma. Upon entering Bukavo, M23 fighters have been greeted by some residents with applause and chants, expressing support for the movement. Many residents have referred to the fighters as their liberators, voicing hopes for change and better opportunities in the country. The situation has led to thousands of refugees fleeing into neighboring Burundi. Over 10,000 refugees have crossed the border, with more continuing to arrive. The DRC government has condemned Rwanda, accusing it of orchestrating plans to occupy and pillage the eastern region. With the international community calling for de-escalation, fears of regional balkanization continue to grow, and calls for the removal of M23 fighters from cities like Goma have intensified. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Let's now take a look at the latest updates from across Europe. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said 100,000 people were without heating in the city of Mykolaiv in cold temperatures. This comes after a Russian drone strike on the critical infrastructure. Ukrainian officials had earlier said that Russian drones had hit a local thermal power plant. Zelensky said the attack was proof Russia did not want peace. The winners at the British Academy Film Awards celebrating the best in big screen action over the past 12 months have been revealed. Conclave, which had entered the night with the most number of nominations, won Best Film. Meanwhile, Edward Berger's Vatican thriller ended up tying with Brodie Gorbett's The Brutalist with 4 wins each. Subsequently, Mikey Madison was named the leading actress for Anora. Among others, Wicked, Emilia Perez and Dune Part 2 won 2 awards each. One of history's oldest mysteries, the true identity of the mythologized 19th century serial killer Jack the Ripper, may have finally been solved. English historian and author Russell Edwards said DNA found on a shawl recovered from the scene of a slaying was tested. This revealed the butcher who terrorised Victorian London's East End in the late 1800s was a 23-year-old Polish immigrant named Aaron Kosminski. He died in a mental institution in 1919. Pope Francis is being treated for a complex clinical situation, the Vatican has said. It also added that he will remain in hospital for as long as necessary. The Pope was admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital on Friday for treatment of bronchitis. In an update, the Vatican has said he has a polymicrobial infection on his respiratory tract. Before his admission last week, the Pope had bronchitis symptoms for several days. A man has been arrested in Belfast in connection with a fatal stabbing of a man in Dublin. Kwam Babatunde, who was in the Irish asylum-seeking system, died after he was stabbed on Saturday. A man was detained as he was preparing to board a ferry to Liverpool. Irish police said he is currently being detained at a police station in Northern Ireland. The stabbing case in Austria that killed a 14-year-old and left 5 others injured has been confirmed as an Islamist attack by Austrian officials. A 23-year-old asylum seeker who was detained at the scene has been charged with murder and attempted murder. Watch the latest in this report.
A stabbing that left a teenager dead and 5 other people injured in southern Austria was an Islamist attack, the Interior Minister said on Sunday, with a 23-year-old Syrian asylum seeker held.
Es handelt sich hier um einen islamistischen Anschlag mit IS-Bezug. Das ist der Stand der bisherigen Ermittlungen. Ein islamistischer Anschlag mit IS-Bezug eines Attentäters, der innerhalb kürzester Zeit sich offensichtlich, so der Stand der Ermittlungen, über das Internet online radikalisiert hat.
During a raid of the suspect's apartment, police said they found clear evidence of Islamist radical thought, such as his flags on the wall. No weapons or other dangerous items were found, police said, adding the suspect was under investigation for murder and attempted murder charges. In the attack in the center of the city in Carinthia state, the suspect went after passers-by with a folding knife. The suspect is an asylum seeker with a valid residence permit and no criminal record, as per the police. The Villach attack came just 2 days after a suspected Afghan asylum seeker rammed a car into people in the city of Munich in neighboring Germany, killing a 2-year-old girl and her mother and wounding dozens others. German police said the 24-year-old Afghan may have had Islamist extremist motives for the attack. Following the attack, at the scene of the crime on a shopping street, residents were seen placing candles, while some hugged mourning the lives lost. Austria hosts a large Syrian refugee population of almost 100,000. Austria's Interior Ministry has now said it's preparing an orderly repatriation and deportation program to Syria. Bureau Report, NewsX.
Now the latest from the world of business. South Korea has banned new downloads of China's DeepSeek AI chatbot. This decision comes from the country's personal data protection watchdog. The government agency has stated that the AI model will only be made available again to South Korean users. This will occur after improvements and remedies are made. These changes will ensure the AI model complies with the country's personal data protection laws. Jonathan Reynolds has said that imposing US tariffs on UK steel would be negative for both countries. He stated that the UK and the US have a mutual interest in negotiating an exemption from President Donald Trump's proposed 25% import tax. This duty could come into force in March. Chinese President Xi Jinping spoke to a symposium attended by business leaders, including Alibaba co-founder Jack Ma. This comes as Beijing grapples with a slowing economy and growing tensions with the US. Other private business leaders at the symposium included Huawei founder Ren Zhengfei, Xiaoxim's Lei Jun, BYD's Wang Chanfu, Unitree's Wang Jingjing, and Cattle's Robin Zeng. Oil prices were little changed as investors focused on developments regarding a potential Russia-Ukraine peace deal. The deal could ease sanctions disrupting global supply flows. Brent crude futures were up 7 cents at $75 per barrel. Meanwhile, US West Texas Intermediate crude remained stable at $71 per barrel. Iraq's central bank has banned 5 more local banks from engaging in US dollar transactions. This action follows meetings with US Treasury officials aimed at combating money laundering, dollar smuggling, and other violations. That is all we have time for, but we'll be back very soon with more of your latest international news.